What if the person who hurt you the most walked back into your life tomorrow? Would you slam the door or offer a hand? There's a story that haunts many people, not because it's extraordinary, but because it's far too familiar. A betrayal, a lie, a wound that left a scar not just on your memory, but on your sense of self. Imagine standing in front of someone who once shattered your trust. They look at you with remorse, or maybe not at all. Your heart tightens. You've tried to move on, but a question lingers in your mind. Can I forgive without pretending it never happened? Today we journey through the wisdom of Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who taught us that true power lies in what we control and what we choose to release. And we'll walk with Leo Tolstoy, who in his later years became a prophet of moral clarity, believing that forgiveness is not weakness, but a radical act of spiritual strength. By the end of this video, you'll understand the difference between forgiving and forgetting, why emotional integrity matters more than forced kindness, and how to set yourself free without erasing your truth. Let's go back to the 1st century CE, to a world of Roman emperors and enslaved people. And there stands Epictetus, a man born into slavery, crippled in his youth, beaten by his master, and yet one of the most liberated minds in the history of philosophy. His most enduring legacy is this: you may not control what happens to you, but you control how you respond. This wasn't a motivational slogan. It was hard-earned wisdom from a man who had every reason to hate the world. Epictetus knew humiliation, powerlessness, injustice, but rather than let those things consume him, he built a fortress within, a mind untouchable by the chaos of the outside world. So, what would Epictetus say to someone grappling with betrayal? He would say, "You've been harmed, yes, but do not give your wound the power to shape your soul." To forgive in the Stoic sense is not to condone the action. It's not even to speak the words out loud. It's to remove the dagger, not from your memory, but from your identity. Forgiveness is a rebellion, a refusal to be a victim twice, once by the offender, and again by your own resentment. And here's the paradox of Stoicism. It teaches you to feel deeply by not being ruled by feelings. Stoicism is not numbness, it is clarity. It says, feel the hurt, mourn it, but then ask, does carrying this anger serve the kind of person I want to become? When you hold on to the pain, you carry your enemy with you. You let them live rent-free in your psyche. You drag their shadow into every future relationship, every decision, every quiet night, when your mind won't shut off. Epictetus challenges us to ask, are you free? Or have you made your pain your master? In his worldview, forgiveness becomes a form of emotional self-governance. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve peace. Now shift scenes. Russia, late 1800s? A wealthy aristocrat named Leo Tolstoy, famed author of War and Peace, has everything: fame, wealth, brilliance. But he's tormented. He watches the world around him rot from within, marriages breaking, peasants suffering, religion turned into ritual. And he sees the same rot inside himself. At age 50, Tolstoy has a spiritual crisis so intense he contemplates suicide, his mind filled with questions. What is the point of any of this? Why are people cruel? Why do I hate when I long for love? In his search for meaning, he begins to shed his privilege. He dresses in peasant clothes, gives away property, walks on foot for miles. And most of all, he seeks moral clarity. It is in this second half of his life that forgiveness becomes the center of his philosophy. He writes, "The strongest of all warriors are these two, time and patience." Tolstoy's forgiveness is not stoic in the sense of cool detachment. No, his is a wounded compassion. He understands that humans are broken, conflicted, endlessly stumbling into cruelty. He doesn't excuse the harm, but he sees the torment underneath it. Where Epictetus says, rise above, Tolstoy says, reach beneath the pride, beneath the sin, beneath the mask of the person who hurt you, and see their fear, their confusion, their wounded inner child. This is not easy. In fact, Tolstoy believed this kind of forgiveness was the hardest thing a human could do, and also the most divine, because it demands that you suffer twice, once from the harm, and again from the act of forgiving. But in that second suffering, he believed, lies our transformation. To forgive with full awareness of the pain, without becoming bitter, is to undergo a spiritual metamorphosis. You grieve, you rage, but you emerge not as someone who forgets, but as someone who loves despite the memory. Tolstoy believed memory is sacred, but he also believed it should not enslave. He urged us to carry the wound as a teacher, not a prison guard. We live in a culture obsessed with moving on. The faster, the better. Don't dwell on the past, they say. Just let it go. But the truth is, the pressure to forget isn't healing, it's erasure. When someone says forgive and forget, what they often mean is forgive and pretend. Pretend it didn't cut as deep as it did. Pretend it didn't change you. Pretend that the version of you who cried, who collapsed, who questioned everything, no longer exists. But forgetting isn't noble, it's dangerous. Forgetting invites repetition. When you forget what harmed you, you forget what to protect yourself from, like a child who touches a burning stove again and again because no one taught them the lesson. We get burned, not by pain, but by unprocessed memory. Forgetting is like wiping clean the warning signs on a road riddled with cliffs. It may look peaceful, but it leads to the same fall. Memory is your protection. Remembering isn't holding a grudge, it's holding a blueprint. It's knowing, this is what betrayal felt like. This is what silence did to me. This is what gaslighting looked like. And then saying, I will never ignore those signs again. Memory is your justice. Some people will never say sorry. Some will rewrite the story to make you the villain. If you forget, you leave your truth in their hands. But when you remember, you preserve your dignity. You refuse to have your story stolen. Forgiveness then becomes not forgetting, but honoring what you survived. Memory is your mirror. You cannot see your growth unless you know what you've grown from. To forget the pain is to forget the path. The fact that you now have boundaries, that you now speak up, that you've chosen peace, not silence. That's transformation. And transformation only becomes visible when you remember where you started. And here's the final truth. Forgetting doesn't set you free. It keeps you in limbo. When you forget, you don't resolve the past, you mute it. But the muted voice returns in other forms, in anxiety, in mistrust, in sabotaging relationships before they start. You don't need to replay the pain forever, but you do need to remember it clearly enough to honor the person you became because of it. Only then can you forgive, not from pressure, but from power. We often hear that forgiveness is letting go, but letting go doesn't mean letting your memory dissolve. In fact, real forgiveness requires remembering, because what you remember becomes your map for healing, growth, and self-protection. Why it matters not to forget. Forgetting invites repetition. If we forget the betrayal, the abuse, the manipulation, then what guards us from it happening again? The mind erases what the body remembers. Forgiveness is strategic awareness. Memory becomes a boundary. When you remember clearly, you can say, this is what I will never accept again. Forgetting removes the fence. Remembering builds it. Memory is your badge of growth. If you forget, you erase not only the hurt, but your victory, the fact that you overcame, that you're still standing. Here are some real challenges people face. If I forgive, it means it didn't matter. This belief is a lie. Forgiveness doesn't erase the hurt. It means you're choosing healing over retaliation. If I forgive, I must reconcile. False. Forgiveness is internal. Reconciliation is optional. You can forgive and still walk away. I don't know who I am without my anger. This is the deepest one. Sometimes pain becomes identity, but you are not your wound. You are the soul that survived it. Write a truth letter. Never send it. Express all the pain. Claim your experience. Visualize the release. See the weight in your hand. Set it down. Walk forward. Refuse false narratives. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Say, it happened. I healed. Set new rituals. Create boundaries, affirmations, and spaces that reflect your new chapter. Imagine your pain like a fire. You can try to smother it, or you can learn to warm yourself by its glow without getting burned. Forgiveness is not the absence of memory. It's the transformation of it. So next time you stand before your past, before the hurt, the betrayal, the scar, ask yourself, can I forgive not to forget, but to begin again? As Epictetus teaches us, your mind is your kingdom. And as Tolstoy reminds us, love, real love, starts with mercy.